Welcome everyone to another edition of the Johnny and Gene Show. I'm Felix Levine, to my right, John Alite and Gene Borello. Before we get into it today, a quick reminder to subscribe to the YouTube if you haven't done so already, and the Patreon as well. All the content goes up there early, bonus content, and the ability to ask these two Q&A questions every month. So go check that out. The description to that is, or the link to that is in the description of this video. We also want to give a big shout out to KCL Automotive. John's going to tell you about them really quickly, and I'll plug the phone number at the end.
98 Henry Street, East Stroudsburg, PA, all car needs. Body shop, one of the best body guys around, David. Ask for David, Chris, or my cousin, Steve. We do inspections, auto work, tires, used cars, buy here, pay here for people who don't have good credit.
Beautiful. And the phone number to that is 570-534-8497. We also want to give a big shout out to Dr. Kramer at CannabisExamNY.com. Medical marijuana is now legal in the state of New York, which means you can now go to www.CannabisExamNY.com to start the process on getting your New York medical marijuana card. Here are some of the many qualifying conditions one could have in order to be eligible to obtain their medical marijuana license in the state of New York. Conditions include chronic pain, arthritis, ALS, PTSD, epilepsy, cancer, HIV/AIDS, all that. Again, go to CannabisExamNY.com today to get your New York medical marijuana card and schedule your exam with a New York licensed physician. Get a 100% refund if you don't qualify. We'll put the link to them in the description of this video. Again, CannabisExamNY.com. Dr. Kramer, check it out today. Scott Schumann, I believe you have some words to say. I personally don't know anything about that, so I'll let you take it away.
Scott Schumann, I'll give you the background. Scott Schumann was a friend of mine. His father, Richie, used to stay with the Genovese people. It was a big earner, big money maker, and knew about the stock market. And Scott was a wild guy. He had a sister, Romy, that hung around also with us. We were all friendly. And I'll set up a story about Scott. Scott stayed with a guy, Joey Scafani, that you know, was a maid guy with the Gambino family. Joey was in some time with me in Loretto Prison. Joey was involved with me and Scott in some robberies of drug houses when we were younger, and then we did business together. Scott stayed with
Nicky V, Gennaro, and what was the guy, Sally P or something like that?
Yeah, these guys were guys that later on hit Scott. They shoot him about 35 times. They kill him. Prior to him killing him, he stayed with Ronnie One Arm Scott. He stayed with Pete Gotti, his son Peter. He stayed with
Charles Kniggs too, right?
Charles a little bit. And then he stayed, with me, Peter Sicara, Steven Sicara. And he got involved in a lot of streets things. And we stayed at the PM Pub back down. He stayed with Ronnie One Arm for a while. And the thing about Scott was they couldn't control him. Originally he was in military school. His father, Richie, put him in there because he was trying to control him. He was in military school with John Jr. I happened to be the same school as John Jr. And when he came out, I met Scott through his father, Richie, and he would hang around us, knew how to make money, wild, in and out of jail. He did some state bids with Joey Scafani, so they got close. And then we started doing some business together, and later on, Scott had issues with a lot of guys. He was abusing maid guys. He was abusing Ronnie One Arm, and nobody could control him. And they came to me and they asked me, mob style, right, the treachery, can you hit Scott for us? So I go meet Scott and I tell him, listen, actually we met in Rockaway. It was me, a guy, Mike Malone, that stayed with me. Cindy is DB's daughter, who was married to Peter Sicara at the time. Peter Sicara, Scott didn't get along great at that time, and I put them together, and we were meeting, putting guns together, some cars together to hit somebody. We were in the middle of going to take somebody out at that time. And Scott and Peter didn't trust each other, so they, Peter says, you sure this maniac ain't gonna shoot me after we kill who we're trying to kill? And I started to laugh, and then Sydney, I like Cindy, his wife, and I think Kevin McMahon was at that one. If he wasn't, he was with me in Brooklyn when we met Cindy another time. And for the people that don't know who Cindy is, and like I said, DB was John Gotti's guy who ran the porn industry in Manhattan. So we all met And I told Scott at that time, at that meeting before we go do the other hit, that guys are trying to kill you. And I was ready to go to jail. I was going away. I says, when I go away, they're going to try to clip you when I'm gone. You need to lay low for a little bit and don't meet too many people. And he left. And I said to him, because he used to abuse Ronnie on a regular basis. And he says, what do you think? I don't know Ronnie's going to try to get somebody like you to kill me. So I says, hey, if the money was good, you know what I would do, right, Scott? We were laughing. And he goes, but we all know they're cheap bastards. Okay. So, we were joking about it, but it was serious at the time. And, at the time, Peter stayed with me all the time. His brother, Steven was a wild guy, tough guy. Steven used to drive my wife up. At that time, she had cancer. He was sick. He had cancer. And he would drive her up to some of the jails I was at. And one of them was McKeon. The other one, Allenwood. And I was very close with them. Stephen at that time was dating my cousin, and my other cousin Patsy, who was with us all the time. And in those days, we were always plotting something, whether we were going to, we robbed somebody in Middle Village. And when we get there, I didn't know Joey was going to be there, Scafani at the time. And so Joey I was very friendly with. I knew his father, Gus. I'd see him down on Mulberry Street. And Joey's one of the guys that got shot during the Gus Farach hit. I don't know if anybody knows about what that story is. Do you know that
Gus
story?
Farach, he killed the FBI agent, right?
DEA
agent. He didn't know who it was. And then supposedly the FBI went to the gangsters and said, we don't care how you got to bring him to us, just bring him to us.
Yeah. And Joey used to stay with him once in a while and try to help him. Joey had a good heart. He was trying to help him and hide him. And he happened to be in a car when they try to hit Gus, when they do hit Gus, and Joey got hit up himself, and is lucky he survived that hit. And so the first time I see Joey after the Mulberry Street, shortly after he was walking around in a cane. Actually, I was with a cane. I just got shot or stabbed at that time. So we were both talking, and the next time I see him is at a robbery we were doing in Middle Village, Queens. And I didn't know Scott and Joey knew each other well from state bids. And we met. And when we were in the house, I realized that Joey was there, and he's with a couple of guys. And when we went outside, we started talking after the robbery. And I told Scott, why didn't you tell me you were bringing Joey? And, anyway, we do the robbery. And Scott had the understanding that a lot of guys wanted to hurt him because he made a lot of enemies. And I knew they were going to try to hit him when I went to jail because I didn't do the hit for him. And they were trying to get me to do it. And I told him, Scott wanted to hit Ronnie, one of them. He says, by the time you come back home, Ronnie will be dead. He says, I'm going to take him out. So I don't know what happened and ensued, but they got these group of guys. I heard different stories that Scott put his hands on a girl he was dating, and one of the brothers, came back, retaliated. And then I heard stories that they asked him to do it, and they had their own beef with him, so that's why they did it. And they caught him outside his house and hit him about 35 times.
Well, he shot a lot of guys also, Scott Sherman. He had work.
Well,
he did a lot of work.
Scott was wild.
Yeah.
Scott, listen, we had a crew of guys in those days.
He had a reputation.
He came with me on a couple occasions besides robberies where we hurt guys. I went with him actually when he shot somebody. There's another shooting I forgot about. He shot somebody off of Queens Boulevard where he lived. And he asked if I'd take a ride with him on that.
Wait, on a funny note, there was a guy in my crew who claimed that you were trying to lure him into an apartment so Scott Schumann could kill him.
Yeah, these guys, you know why they're not,
He swore by it.
You're talking about Mike. What's
Palmacio.
But you know what? We used to tease him because he was going with Kubo's daughter when he was a young guy. We weren't going to kill him or hurt him, and that's just paranoia of a guy. That's not about.
He swore you were trying to get him upstairs in an apartment to kill him.
Nah,
he swore.
I mean, if I was trying to do it, he'd be dead. So these guys just are not an ability, and they're in the wrong company of guys that are serious. Scott happened to be a serious guy. Peter Sakara, obviously, he was on some work. He's not as wild as the rest of us, and his brother Steven was very wild.
That's funny that you say that, because Peter Sakara had the reputation of that.
Well, because he stayed with serious guys. Prior to me, he stayed with Andrew, and he stayed with Joey and that crew that actually stabbed up and shot Carmine Agnello. Those guys were, they put in work. They did some armored car robberies.
Yeah, sure.
They were dangerous guys. At that time, they were fooling around, getting high too. So that mixture. These guys were getting down guys. It was a different era. So Stephen, Peter stayed with his brother Stephen, who was very dangerous. And I believe he did a robbery with my cousin when I was in prison too, and they killed somebody on that robbery. So, but Stephen was very loyal. You know, he's a great guy. He's very loyal with me. I have nothing bad to say about him. But Peter kind of was on the coattails of his brother and the rest of us, and he didn't put in work. I'm not saying that he wasn't at scenes where he was involved in driving somebody to a murder, and I won't mention some names that he was at, and the guy accused him of leaving him at the scene, and so I don't know the details of that. But, Peter did do armed robberies. He did get involved in some things. He did understand the street, and he's a big guy, so he did intimidate some people. He got into a situation with one of Tough Tony's guys in Parkside that I had to go take care of from. He was there with a guy, Chris Castellano, who later on, Chris gets killed, for people that don't know his
I know
partners.
his son.
With and they killed him after he got out of jail, and I'm not sure what that was about. I heard different things. He was an informant. He wasn't. He beat a drug case. He was out on bail. My cousin Billy Queso was his partner, who ended up testifying against me and informant against me. So I don't know if it was related to that and why they took care of him, but they all start dropping at that time. Chris goes, Scott Schumann goes, unrelated. There's a guy that was supposedly involved in the hit of Scott Schumann that later he goes, I think his name was Jimmy, I think he goes after that. That's related to this team that killed Scott Schumann, and I'm not really sure about all the details of that, and we're going to do a show on that next. I got to get a little more details on that murder. So, and, these, like I always say, in our day, there was bodies being dropped on a regular basis. So if you're not a serious guy in that life and didn't understand the life, or you let your guard down, you were going to go. And unfortunately, that's what happened to Scott. That's what happened with these guys. And these guys all got convicted, but they did small time. I think they did 5 and 7 years or 4 years. I don't even think they hit a 7-year bid, any of these guys. So one of their guys after that got killed. And I'm not really sure. I'm looking into that, if it was related or not. And so when people talk about, some of these are guys like Scott, was in the life.
He had a reputation.
Well, he had a reputation. His father stayed with major players in the Genovese family.
I always heard about him.
He stayed with, with us, and he stayed with Joey Scafani, who's also a made guy in the Gambino family. He stayed with Ronnie Wonham. He abused Pete Gotti at one time. He abused the captain in the Bonanno family at a bar one time, slapped him. So, Scott was a serious guy. And back in those days, you don't put your hands on a made guy where you're going.
Didn't he walk around with a shotgun everywhere?
Yeah, Scott always had a couple of guns. He was like me. We carried guns left and right. We always had 3 or 4 guns at our access.
Everywhere.
We either, on us or in a car, or, guys that are with us. So it was listen, again, it was a different era. So you got guys like Scott, and, you had Cindy, whose father was DB, that, marries Peter. So, you're talking about, top mob guys, not bullshit guys, and guys that were very capable.
Right. You don't have to be a made guy to be, very respected and feared, and, people don't understand that. They keep going, made, that doesn't matter. You should,
well, you're not going to handle a guy like Scott. I mean, he got handled by these guys because they're other street kids. But he ran through a lot of mob guys, and guys with position that,
like myself,
wouldn't go near him. They were afraid of him. So, and I happen to like him. He's one of the guys that I was very friendly with. And if I called him, he came. And if I needed to do a piece of work like we were going to do when we met in Rockaway, he was down. He never said no. He didn't make excuses with me.
Beautiful. Well, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
Well, we're going to add, there's going to be more to this story, everybody, about Scott and the next guy that went on that hit that also got killed. And we're going to talk about that. I'm going to get a little more in depth in the Scott Schumann hit and some of the families that were involved in the 5 families in New York with us.
Where can the masses find you guys on social media?
Instagram, Gene Borello, DM me. I answer everyone. That's where.
I just did a show, BuzzFeed, that'll be out probably this week. I did a live stream yesterday. I want to thank BuzzFeed. They're a great company that I do some work with. I appreciate it. And the people that called in the stream yesterday had some great questions. I had fun with it. I have a new book coming out called Death Haven with Lou Romano. That'll be out shortly. And you can find me on True John Alite, johnalite.com website. And some of the other places that you can find me is through Johnny and Gene Show. And hopefully you guys are liking the stories, and click on, subscribe to us, Patreon, and appreciate it. We'll still keep bringing you more content.
And you guys can follow me at Felix.Levine, and also check out my YouTube channel and subscribe to that, where I have solo interviews on my show with these two as well. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.